This is Smashmouth football. Running the football was extremely challenging in 1971. Runners often paid a heavy price for the privilege of carrying the ball. The NFL's third worst rushing team during the decade of the 1970s is the Houston Oilers. They only had 3 games in which their leading rusher gained more than 50 yards, and they had 6 games with less than 30 yards. At times, rookie quarterback Dan Pastorini was the Oilers' best rushing threat. He was their third leading rusher with only 140 yards. One of the biggest reasons for the Oilers' rushing woes was the horrific quarterback play. The Oilers rotated 3 quarterbacks all season, and with 2 of them being rookies, Lynn Dickey and Dan Pastorini. It resulted in many negative plays as those 2 quarterbacks started 10 of the 14 games. Oilers quarterbacks fired a league-worst 37 interceptions against only 12 touchdown passes, a horrible ratio, even for this era. After the Week 1 shellacking, the Oilers turned the keys to their offense to Dan Pastorini, the 3rd overall draft pick in 1971's NFL Draft. A run-option pass play may not have been the smartest call against the Super Bowl champion Chiefs from the 1969 season, who were loaded with extremely physically gifted defensive players. In Week 1, the Oilers ran 15 times for 35 yards, and in this Week 2 game, they ran 20 times for 26 yards. Defenses knew when the Oilers were going to pass, and they took full advantage. In Week 5, Pastorini meandered his way to a 27-yard run, just short of the team's longest run of 31 yards for the season. Number 41, Leroy Sledge, started his only NFL game in Week 5, and here's why. He carried the ball 13 times for 36 yards, but only carried it twice for 7 yards for the rest of the season, his only one in the NFL. John Frenchie Fuqua carried 16 times for 113 yards against the Oilers in Week 6, with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns in a 23-16 Steelers win. Houston now sported a winless record with only 392 rushing yards through Week 6, an average of only 65 per game. By year-end, their 79 yards per game was the worst in the NFL and the 3rd worst in the 1970s. Oilers head coach Ed Hughes may have asked Steelers head coach Chuck Noll what his team needed, and Noll may have said, "New running backs." After this game, the Oilers traded tight end Willie Frazier to the Chiefs for Robert "Tank" Holmes, who made second-team All-Pro in 1968 and was named to the AFL's All-Star Game in 1969. For Kansas City in 1971, however, Holmes only had 21 carries for 35 yards. Nevertheless, he was looked upon as being the Oilers' savior at running back. Despite only playing 8 games with the Oilers, he was their team leader in rushing yards with a whopping total of 288 yards. Former Chargers star running back Dick Post was traded to the Oilers the same day as Holmes was. He had been traded by the Chargers to the Broncos just 3 months earlier for a second-round draft pick. The Oilers sent running back Joe Dawkins to the Broncos for Post. In his first game with the Oilers, he ran 8 times for 1 yard, and the rest of the time with Houston, he ran 22 times for 42 yards. Pastorini completed 6 of 15 passes with 4 interceptions in Week 7's game. Through 7 games, he only threw 2 touchdown passes with 12 interceptions, and he'd only played in 4 games. Despite only completing 43% of his passes up to Week 8, the Oilers stuck with him as their starting quarterback. However, he threw 3 more interceptions, and the team rushed 27 times for only a 2.63 yards per carry. Tank Holmes was the week's leading ground gainer with 29 yards on 12 carries. The Oilers were forced to pass too frequently, in large part to playing catch-up due to their 22nd ranked defense out of 26 teams in terms of points allowed. Lynn Dickey started in Week 9 and only completed 3 of 11 passes with 3 interceptions. Woody Campbell led the Oilers with 26 rushing yards, and Tank Holmes had a trying day with only 16 yards on 12 carries. The Oilers only had 3 games of more than 100 rushing yards, and they had 4 games of less than 50 yards. At the end of the season, their team 3.1 yards per carry was the worst in the NFL. It's difficult to establish a running game when you're down 35-0, like against Oakland in this game. The Oilers finally drove to the goal line, and they didn't even trust their running game to get the job done. In the next two games, Tank Holmes was the Oilers' leading rusher with 28 and 23 yards. Being down 21-3 at halftime to the Bengals in Week 10 constituted relying upon passing versus running in order to get back into the game. Old Pro Charlie Johnson not only started his final game for Houston in Week 11, but it was also his last appearance for them. In 1972, he was traded to the Broncos. Old Charlie called a trick play. Woody Campbell took the handoff and threw to Charlie Joyner for a touchdown. Woody Campbell's hard running resulted in an Oilers game-high 46 yards, while backfield mate number 39 Robert Holmes chipped in with 43 yards. The Oilers' 147 team rushing yards was a season high, and they crushed the Steelers 29-3 for their second win of the season. This was a remarkable performance given the Oilers' prior running ineptitude, and it was against a defense that would eventually become one of the more formidable in history. Of the Oilers' 10 rushing touchdowns, 6 were from 1 yard out, 2 were from 2 yards, 1 from 4 yards, and the longest was 8 yards. The Bills' loss sewed up the first overall pick for them in the 1972 NFL Draft. They drafted 6'6" 265-pound defensive end Walt Patulski from Notre Dame. Week 14's game in the Astrodome was a wild affair. Tank Holmes ran for an Oilers season-high 92 yards. The second best effort by an Oilers ball carrier was only 56 yards. While Dan Pastorini threw 3 more interceptions, he did take out some frustration by tackling Bob Howard hard out of bounds. Woody Campbell threw a 14-yard touchdown to Charlie Joyner on a sweep pass option play. However, this Bob Babbage 27-yard fumble return for a touchdown put the Chargers ahead 23-7 just before halftime. In the second half, the Oilers scored 42 points, 21 of them due to interception returns for touchdowns, to provide a huge 49-33 win. The Oilers rushed for 135 yards, their second best effort in 1971. Ed Hughes finished with a 4-win, 9-loss, and 1-tie record in his only season as a head coach in the NFL. Unfortunately for Oilers players, fans, and cheerleaders, the team suffered through back-to-back 1-win and 13-loss seasons in 1972 and 1973. The Oilers would have to wait 7 dizzying seasons before they had a respectable rushing attack. But when they did it, it was the Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell, who was responsible as he led the NFL in rushing yards each of his first 3 seasons.